Welcome to the answer guide for the Unit 8 assessment. You should be watching this in preparation of your pre-assessment. Here on the first question, question 1, we want the sine of angle C, the cosine of angle C, and the tangent of angle C. Remember that sine, cosine, and tangent all operate from the definition SOHCAHTOA, where we talked about opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. For all three of them, C is my point of reference. So I'm going to look from point C. The 25 is the hypotenuse. The 7 is the opposite side, and the 24 is the adjacent. Remember, adjacent means leg closest. The legs form a 90-degree angle. So the hypotenuse is the piece that's not a leg, and the opposite leg is farthest away, the adjacent leg is closest. So to find the sine of C, sine is OH, so we put O over H, we put 7 over 25. Move on to the next question. The cosine of C, the definition of cosine is A over H, so adjacent over hypotenuse, so 24 over 25. And finally, tangent. Tangent is defined as opposite over adjacent, O over A, so 7 over 24. Answer the question this way, collect the points, and move forward. In question 2, we want to know which statement has to be true about the sine and cosine of A and B. Well, we need a right triangle, we need measurements. So if we call, let's see, one triangle is a 3, 4, 5. So call the two legs 3 and 4, and call the 5 the hypotenuse. So let's first work on the ones that use angle A as our angle. We're using A as the angle, 5 is the hypotenuse. The two legs are here. So this is the opposite leg, this is the adjacent leg. So in question A, the cosine of A and the sine of A being equal, again, SOHCAHTOA will tell us our definitions. So the cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse. So in this picture, adjacent is 3, hypotenuse is 5. Sine of A is opposite over hypotenuse, so that would be 4 over 5. Those two are obviously not equal, so it's not this one. Now for the other ones, let's see, the cosine of A again is 3 over 5. So I'll put 3 over 5 down for each of those. And the sine of A is 4 over 5. For the other side, we have B as our point of reference. So let's look at the triangle in terms of B. 5 would still be the hypotenuse, but now the 3 is opposite and the 4 is adjacent. So sine of B would be opposite over hypotenuse, so opposite B is 3. Hypotenuse is 5. We're looking for the one that's true. Here we found it right here. So it's letter B. If we looked at the other ones, the cosine of B is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's 4 over 5. That's definitely not true. And down here, this sine of B was 3/5. That's not true. Which of the following can be used to determine the height, y, above the ground in feet that the ladder touches? So we have a wall. We have a ladder leaning next to it. The ladder is 12 feet tall. The ladder makes an angle of 75.5 with the ground. So this in here is 75.5. The height above the ground, so how high up does the ladder reach? So we have these parts. The 75.5 is going to be our angle. The 12 is the hypotenuse. The y is the opposite. So using trig again, it's SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. We have O and we have H. So we're going to write sine. We'd say sine of the angle, 75.5 equals the opposite which is y, over the hypotenuse, which is 12. So in this case, sine of 75.5 equals y over 12 would be this question here. Then question 4, a child is standing across the street from his apartment. His mother is in the apartment. On the balcony, the angle of depression between the mother's eyes and her child's eyes is 22 degrees. Find the distance between their eyes. If the distance between their eyes is 32 feet, how far is the child standing from the building? So we have an apartment building, and up near the top, we have a balcony with mom standing on it. We have a child out here farther away. The mom is looking at the child, and that makes an angle of depression. Depression means below the horizon. So the angle of depression is 22. The mom's eyes are a total of 32 feet away. We want to figure out how far is the child away, so that's our unknown. Now, because the angle of depression is 22, the angle of elevation is also 22. We now have a hypotenuse and adjacent leg. So we'll be saying the cosine of 22 equals x over 32. And remember, when we're dividing by 32, the way to solve is we multiply by 32. And if we take 32 times the cosine of 22, that'll give us an answer, 29 point something. It's actually going to round to 30 feet. We round to the nearest whole foot. Tangent of A. Okay, here is A. That would force this to be hypotenuse, this to be opposite, and this to be adjacent. Here we go again. So katoa. We want tangent. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. So tangent A would be 24 over 10, opposite over adjacent. And I believe on this one, all we have to type into those boxes, 24 over 10, since they've already asked for the tangent of A. A and B are complements. Which equation about the two angles must be true? So we have a triangle. Here's A, here's B. Here's a right angle. In terms of A, this would be opposite, this would be adjacent, this would be hypotenuse. So if I were to look at the sine of A, that would equal O over H. Now we compare that with the sine of B. Sine of B is the opposite of B, which is A, over the hypotenuse, which is H. So these two are not equal, so it's not A. Let's compare it to the cosine of A. Cosine A is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's A over H. That does not match the sine of A, so these two do not match. So this one doesn't work. Let's look at the cosine of A. The cosine of A and the sine of B. Wait, the cosine of A, these two are the same. The cosine of A and the sine of B are the same. And here they have the cosine of A and the sine of B. Again, we're having to remember, so basically, if we know the sine of one angle, it's equal to the cosine of its complement. Or vice versa, the cosine of B equals the sine of A. This one, we want the ratio of the sine of B. B is our point of view. So katoa. So here are my two legs. This one is farthest away, so it's O. This one's closest, so it's A. And that has to be the hypotenuse. Sine is opposite of our hypotenuse, so opposite is 21. Hypotenuse is 29. Our answer would be 21 over 29. Here we want to write a ratio in this picture, which would have to be true. Okay, first off, if this angle here is 32, this one has to add to make 90, so it has to be 38. So as we look at this problem, we could, since we know our 52, this is the hypotenuse, this is the opposite, this is the adjacent. So with the 52, we would be opposite over adjacent, 17 over C. So in terms of the 52, we've got the only equation we can write using the 17 and the C. Using the 38, this is still the hypotenuse, but this is the adjacent. And with the 38, we're using adjacent and hypotenuse. So, cosine, so the cosine of 38 equals the adjacent, which is 17, over the hypotenuse, which is C. Cosine of 38 equals 17 over C. Letter B. Again, they both have 17 over C. The only time they're going to equal is the sine of 1 equals the cosine of its complement. 52 and 38 are complements because they add to equal 90. All right, question 9 is not available for you, but number 10 is a question you can retake. We want to find out the length of one of the diagonals. So a diagonal connects a corner to a corner. A right triangle, we could call this X. In a right triangle, we know that one leg squared, so 6 squared, plus another leg, 12 squared, equals the hypotenuse squared. So 36 plus 104 equals X squared. 180 equals X squared. X is going to be the square root of 180. We'll put it into our calculator. They want the length in feet. So it doesn't tell us how accurate. We'll go ahead and plug it into our calculator. 13 times 13 is 169. I think this one turns out to be 13.6. If you want to go 2 decimal places rounded, that would also be acceptable. Here we want to find the short leg and the long leg. So let's first work on the short leg. Well, the short leg is opposite to 30. Using our trig, so Contoa, with the 30, this would be the opposite, this would be the adjacent. Opposite and adjacent are used in tangent. So the tangent of 30 equals X over 12. 12 times the tangent of 30 is going to give us our X. And if we put that into our calculator, I believe it gave us 6.9. This would be the hypotenuse. It's unknown, so we could call it Y. Working with the 12 and the Y, we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse. That's cosine. The cosine of 30 equals the adjacent 12 over the hypotenuse H. Remember on this type, we switch when we're dividing by the variable. If you don't remember it, as long as you have the equation here written, that'll get you some points. So 12 divided by the cosine of 30. And in this case, I believe that gives us something around 13.9, rounded to the nearest tenth. Question 12, which one's acute, obtuse, and right? Here we use a squared plus b squared. We compare it to c squared. So on the first one, we have 15 squared plus 17 squared. We're comparing that to 21 squared. 21 times 21, I believe, is 441. 15 squared is 225. This is 289. If we add those, we get 514, I think. Now c squared is less than a squared plus b squared. 441 is smaller than 514, so that means this one's acute. And so we would write 15, 17, 21 here. We go through the same process with our others. Let me just show you the 3, 9, and 10. So 3 squared plus 9 squared. Compare that to 10 squared. 10 squared is 100. This is 9 plus 81. So that's 90. In this case, the c squared was bigger than a squared plus b squared. That means it's obtuse. And so the 3, 9, 10 would be obtuse. And I'll leave it for you to take 21 squared plus 28 squared. Compare that to 35 squared. Use your calculator. Let's see, this is 1225. You'd have to find both of these. I think this is 441. So this is going to be 700. It's going to be a 4. That's 784. That's the 1225. Since they're equal, it's going to be right. And then finally, we want to find the value of x. We have 70. 50 would be the opposite. The x would be the hypotenuse. So Katoa. One last time. We have opposite hypotenuse. Opposite hypotenuse is a sine equation. So the sine of our angle, 70, equals the opposite, 50, over the hypotenuse. Let's see, that's x. Switch the two values because we're dividing by the variable. So x is equal to 50 divided by the sine of 70. And that's going to be 53. So our answer is going to be B. If you don't remember how to do this one, use a little bit of common sense. The hypotenuse is always the longest. Since this is 50, we're looking for an answer bigger than 50. 47 is not bigger than 50. 18 is not bigger than 50. So we have a 1 out of 2 chance of at least guessing this correctly using a little bit of common sense. So study up on these, and that should prepare you for your test. On Wednesday. The 30th, I believe it is. No, Wednesday's the 29th.